This is 6.2 and 6.3, the percent proportion and the percent equation. So for the percent proportion, we can represent A is P percent of W with the proportion A over W equals P over 100. And remember, percent means out of 100, so the percent is always going to be over 100. And then we have part out of the whole, like a regular fraction. So we would say where A is part of the whole and P, or P percent, which is P over 100, is the percent. So 2 out of 5 is 40%. 2 is the part, 5 is the whole, and 40 is the percent. So we plug them into their spots there. And then if any one of those were missing, we could cross multiply and solve for the missing value. So if we look at what percent of 20 is 12. So what percent, that means I don't know the percent of 20. So 20 is my whole, is 12. So plugging those in, 12 over 20 equals P over 100. We're going to fill in the portions that we know. And now we are going to cross multiply. So P times 20 and 12 times 100. And that gives 20P equals 1200. Then to get P all by itself, we need to undo the multiplication. So divide each side for 20, and P equals 60, which is 60%. If we have what percent of 45 is 31.5, then we would have 31.5 over 45 equals P over 100. Cross multiply, and you get 45P equals 3150. To get P by itself, divide each side by 45, and P equals 70%. So these ones are a little bit different. They say what number is 2% of 37? So 37 is still the whole, but this time I know the percent and I do not know the part. So when it says of 37, that's a clue that is talking about the whole. So plug in what we know, cross multiply, and solve for A. If we have what number is 15% of 150, that's saying we don't know the part, we do know the percent, and we do know the whole. So plug those in, cross multiply, and solve for A. Here we have 30% of what number is 75. So this time I know the percent. I do not know the whole, but I do know the part. So plugging those in, if it says of what, that is the whole. So when I plug those in, and then I would cross multiply and solve for W to get 250. So 30% of 250 is 75. Here I have 125% of what number is 35. Plugging in what we know, cross multiply and solve for W, we would say 125% of 28 is 35. So that makes sense because 125% means we have all of it and then a quarter more. So if I have all of 28 and adding a quarter of that onto it, a quarter of 28 is 7. So 28 plus 7 is 35. Then we have the percent equation. So instead of setting up a proportion, we can use the equation A equals P, the percent, times the whole. And so this percent needs to be in the decimal form to multiply with it. So if I have 16 equals 40% of 40, I would convert 40% to my decimal and have 16 times 16 equals 0.4 times 40, and that gives 16. So what number is 38% of 56? We would have A, because that's what number is, means equals, 38% goes in for the percent, of means multiply, and 56 is the whole. Just like it was before, of a number means of the whole. So then we would have 0.38 times 56 gives 21.28. And if we have 12.5 is what percent of 62 and a half, then we would have 12.5 equals the percent times 62.5. So to get the percent by itself, we need to divide each side by 62.5 to get 0.2, which is 20%. And finally, we can have 39 is 46% of what number? So 39 equals 46% of what? And then solving for W, divide each side by 0.46, and you get W is about 74.78. We had to round this one because it went on for quite a while. So sometimes you have to round, but it's about that much. Now this says we are paying for lunch and receive the bill as shown. We are going to find the percent of sales tax on the food. So what percent of this tax did they get from the total? So to do that, we're going to plug it into our equation. I know that the part is 3.38. I don't know the percent, and the whole was 42.25. So divide each side, and we get the percent is 0.08 for 8%. Then it says you are leaving a 20% gratuity, which is tip, on the total of the food. What is your final total? So I need to plug in, I don't know what my part is of the gratuity that I'm paying, but I do know I'm paying 20% of what was on the food total. So 0.2 times 42.25 is 8.45. So I'm leaving $8.45 as gratuity and adding that onto my subtotal. So my final total, when adding all of it together, is $50.70.